All right, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to the Monday edition of the Steve Malzberg Show from our New York City studios, and we'll be joined by presidential candidate Rick Santorum momentarily. He'll be weighing in on what the president had to say yesterday, and we have a lot to talk about today. There are new polls out. We have experts to talk about that as well. It's all straight ahead. Don't miss it. Stephen Moore, Larry Kudlow, and more. But first, let's watch the president from last night.
We cannot turn against one another by letting this fight be defined as a war between America and Islam. That, too, is what groups like ISIL want. ISIL does not speak for Islam. They are thugs and killers, part of a cult of death. And they account for a tiny fraction of more than 1 billion Muslims around the world, including millions of patriotic Muslim Americans who reject their hateful ideology.
All right, joining us now, ladies and gentlemen, as promised, Rick Santorum, former U.S. Senator and, of course, Republican presidential candidate. The website, ricksantorum.com. Hello, Senator.
How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing well.
Unfortunately, the president's got it 180 degrees. It's just completely opposite of what he says. ISIS fears that, in fact, we will treat them as a caliphate that they claim to be, and do what is necessary to delegitimize them in the eyes of the Muslim world. If you want to create a problem for ISIS, you have to destroy and take back their land. So the Muslim world will see them not as a legitimate voice for Islam. Just saying they aren't, that's nothing. That's propaganda. What Muslims around the world are looking for is to whether this is the true caliphate that they claim they are. And the only way you can make that determination is not by going to Barack Obama and saying, "Oh, well, this Christian in the United States says they're not the legitimate caliphate. Oh, they must not be." That's not going to convince them. What's going to convince them is if you look at Islamic law and look at the determination as to whether the caliphate is real or not, and one of the principal objectives of a caliphate is to maintain and expand their reach and the pursuit of global jihad. If you take their land back from them, you have now struck them at their heart, and you've destroyed their ability to be able to recruit. And that's what the president is not doing, because he thinks propaganda will defeat ISIS.
Why is it that this administration and those on the left say that everything that common sense dictates, and that, Obama again said his military experts, they don't buy into this, but why is it that fighting and destroying and sending ground troops in to clean up and mop up ISIS and do exactly what you said, take the land back, or surveillance on Muslims and scrutiny on mosques, etc., and calling it radical Islam, what it is, identifying the enemy? Why is it their cover on every one of those is that's exactly what ISIS wants?
Well, they're delusional. I mean, there's nothing else you can say. There's no common sense to anything that the president is articulating. We need a president who's going to be honest with the American public, and frankly, honest with himself about the reality of the dangers that we face with radical Islam. Here's what I can tell you, Steve: that ISIS listed me, the only person in the presidential race, as an enemy of ISIS. And when they listed me in their publication as an enemy of ISIS, they did so because I accurately described who they are, and I accurately described why we had to defeat them. They see that as the threat. That's an enemy. They don't see Barack Obama as an enemy. They see him in many respects, the policies that he's put forward, as an ally, because the Obama policy is to contain ISIS. What does that mean? Allow them to keep their territory. If we allow them to keep their territory, we are feeding ISIS the most powerful tool they have, which is to say we have fought the great Satan of the United States, we have maintained our territorial integrity, and you must follow us.
All right, let me give you one more on this terrorist watch list. Again, the president yesterday saying, why should people on this watch list be able to, not to be able to fly, but they could buy guns, as if this is going to do anything. It would not have stopped San Bernardino. But there were 72 Department of Homeland Security employees on the terrorist watch list. Shouldn't they be able to buy guns if they wanted guns? And Ted Kennedy was on the terrorist watch list. A friend of mine, every time he flies, he's on the terrorist watch list. The terrorist watch list is so far from perfect, it's just totally imperfect.
Well, there's according to reports, there's over 1 million people on the terrorist watch list, and you're right. We don't know how people get on it. We don't know how people get off of it, and I hear the president calling for the terrorist watch list people not to be able to get guns. You know what you don't hear? You don't hear law enforcement calling for it.
Yeah.
Because law enforcement knows this list is not reliable. Number one, and number two, do we want to tip people off as to whether they're on the terrorist watch list by going in and trying to purchase a gun? There are all sorts of reasons why, from a law enforcement perspective, we shouldn't have this to be the case. And again, it's the president ignoring the reality of the problem. It is not guns that are the problem. The problem is that you think terrorists care about whether they're violating gun laws. They're killing people. They're blowing up people. They don't care if they're violating gun laws.
It's so frightening. It's funny. It's so frightening. I mean, I know it's not funny, but it's just sick. All right. You were asked at an event by Frank Luntz the other day if there was a time, and you're a very religious man, and you make no bones about that. If there was a time you ever doubted God and were angry at God, I want to play some of what you said.
We went to that sonogram, and I'll never forget the sonographer going over Karen's abdomen and looking up to us and saying, "Your child has a fatal defect and is going to die." We did everything we could. We resolved we would not lose our son. We had intrauterine surgery, something very experimental, and it worked. Except 3 days later, Karen got an infection, and he was delivered at 21 weeks. We were blessed he was born alive. We had the opportunity to hold him for 2 hours, in which he knew only love.
All right, Rick, that's a reference to a son of yours that was born and didn't make it.
Yeah, that was our son Gabriel back in 1996, and it was a painful, horrible thing to confront. And we had this horrible diagnosis, and we did everything we could to save his life, and in the end, we were unsuccessful. That because of the surgery, Karen got an infection in her the amniotic sac that our son Gabriel was living in, and as a result of that, what happens is the body tries to expel the infection, which means deliver the baby. And so she went into labor and delivered Gabriel, and it saved her life. Otherwise, she would have died had we not expelled the infection. But unfortunately, Gabriel was too young to survive and only lived a couple of hours. There was a story that just came out a few days ago that a biographer of President Clinton made a
Taylor Branch, I believe.
Yeah, he made that President Clinton made a comment during this time that intimated that he thought that instead of our child being born alive and dying, that we had aborted our son. And this was a horrible rumor that was going around by some on the very far left of the ideological spectrum, because the week before this all happened, I was on the floor of the United States Senate debating the override of President Clinton's ban of partial birth abortions, and so I was a very
you were out there, yeah. You were leading the charge, yeah.
I was leading the charge, so they took the opportunity at one of the worst times in my life to personally attack me and say that I had killed my son, and the President of the United States, at least in this interview, seemed to go along with that and make a comment that he believed the same thing. And I have to tell you that when I read it the other day, it was a gut punch, and it certainly was to our whole family. So the dark side of a man who obviously looks at that personal tragedy and can only see that kind of darkness in those comments. And so all I would say is that I'm horribly disappointed in the president.
Good luck with the campaign, and I know it's ricksantorum.com, and we'll speak to you soon, sir.
Thank you, my friend. God bless.
All right, Rick Santorum, ladies and gentlemen. The Malzberg panel is next. Don't go away.